Welcome to the Heart Attack Thriver podcast. My name is Brian Simpson, and I'll be your host. On today's episode, I'm super excited to finally have Veronica Rouse from Toronto's Sunnybrook Hospital, who is a dietitian, back. We did a recording back in 2020, I believe it was, and it wasn't meant to be because when we finished, it went up into the ether and it was gone, and I was devastated. She's a busy person. She's got 2 young boys at home, has a lot going on. So I'm just super happy that you're here. So Veronica, welcome to the show. And why don't you just introduce yourself and let's dive into that.
Wonderful, Brian. Thanks so much for having me back. It's really wonderful that you invited me back after our conversation in 2020. I can't believe it's been that long. So thank you for that. Yes, I'm Veronica. I'm a dietitian. I work at the University Health Network in Toronto at the Cardiac Rehab Center. And I help individuals eat a heart healthy diet. And my approach to heart healthy eating is making sure we're adding foods to our diet. So not necessarily focusing on restriction, but more addition and the foods that actually provide therapeutic benefit, and making sure individuals are aware of what those foods are and kind of dispelling myths and misconceptions out there.
Well, on that, I have to just sort of segue off of that a little bit because I'm fully plant-based now. I literally watched the documentary Forks Over Knives after my heart attack. I just moved here to California from Toronto and watched this documentary. I don't even know how it found me or how it came to be that I watched this thing, but I watched it. And when I finished it, I was like, that's it. I'm done. I'm going fully plant-based. And it's been a journey, and I'm super blessed to have a partner now, my wife, Adrienne, who is on that journey with me, because it would be really hard if you're plant-based and they're not. Now, she does eat fish. She's not as strict as I am. And that's just my personality. When I say I'm going to do something, done. And it does present challenges for sure. I mean, I remember being so constipated in the beginning, and I'm like, what the heck? How is that
Mhm.
possible?
Yes.
And then I started to do research on it, and I probably should have taken enzymes to help my body, taken some literally plant-based probiotics that are going to help that gut flora turn over to be able to process, plants more than it would be otherwise. And yeah, so I mean, it's been a journey. One of the things you talked about myths, one of the myths that I believe, and it comes up a lot, is the protein myth that if you eat a lot of plants, you're not going to get enough protein. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on that as a dietitian.
Yeah, absolutely. You definitely can get enough protein through plants. And so there is the vegan and vegetarian diet that's out there that is sufficient in protein and definitely can happen. You have to be a little bit more intentional about it, and understanding how to pair foods and making sure you're having protein at each meal, but it definitely can happen. So yeah, not a myth. I think what I see with protein when I'm working with clients one-on-one, so typically when clients are coming to cardiac rehab, they have had a heart attack, a stroke, a stent of some sort, and they want to change their diet. They're very motivated individuals. They've heard that eating animal meat is bad for you, which, is true. We don't want to eat as much as we are eating in North America. So that is great that individuals are aware of that. But I think the gap that I see is that individuals aren't replacing animal protein with protein from plants. So making sure you are eating enough protein is important. Can it be done by an all plant diet? Absolutely. But it's more awareness of maybe what those foods are and how to cook with them, because sometimes in North America, we just aren't used to cooking with them and not sure how to use them and prepare them, incorporate them into these family meals that we have. So that's where education and recipes come in.
Yeah, no, and I love some of the recipes that you post up. Really, everything looks really healthy, nutritious, and delicious, which are really important that it's nutritious and delicious. Because if it's not, you're not going to stick with it, right? And
You got it.
you've got so many options, like in the legumes, lentils, like all of these things that honestly I never really ever ate before in my life. I'd never had lentils before, didn't even know what a lentil was. But they're when you learn how to cook with them and we make this lentil stew, and it lasts for days because we make a big
Mhm.
batch, veggies, and it's just everything but the kitchen sink, in it. And it's delicious, and you feel satiated. You feel like you're full when you walk away. Because sometimes when in the beginning when I was eating just plants, I was feeling hungry still. And I think just because maybe my body just wasn't able to really kind of process things, and it's what I kind of figure. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, there's so many options now, and there's so many, like with the advent of social media and Facebook and Instagram, there's all these plant-based people that are posting recipes. And I mean, now there's no excuse. You got recipes that, look delicious and are delicious.
Yes, absolutely. And I think too, you don't have to go from 0 to 100. So you don't have to just stop eating meat completely, but slowly reducing the meat and adding some of these beans and lentils to your dishes could help ease the burden of new food, right? So you're getting used to the taste of it while still having the flavors you're used to, and adding some of these therapeutic nutrients like soluble fiber, plant protein that can really help protect our heart, I think is a good approach. And then you slowly work yourself up to more and more and more. So 0 to 100, sometimes that scares people off, saying, I don't have time to, revamp my diet, especially families. So individuals who are cooking for kids, that it's hard. You don't want to be making two different meals at dinner time. We hardly have time to make one. So just those little shifts, I think, can be really powerful. And then once they become familiar, like you said, it just gets easier and easier.
Yeah, and I think that's just a great point. I am that 0 to 100 guy, and you don't have to be like me. You can do, slowly. What I love when I read some of these, like, the new guidelines that have come out, in terms of what they're recommending should be on your plate. It's more vegetables now. It's leaning more towards plants, and that's a great start. Like, so if you can move from, eating a little bit to, more with
Mhm.
each kind of progress, I mean, that's a win, right?
Yes, absolutely. I do presentations weekly at the hospital, and I always start with, if you take one thing away from my presentation, it's eating more plants. Just try to eat more plants, and you'll be protecting your.
Yeah. Now, have a friend back in Canada who is involved with the brand, and they have this protein calculator. And, they're pretty adamant that, they believe you're not going to get enough protein. And here's where I think the issue is protein, not all proteins are created equal. And when you think about it, the strongest animals in the world eat plants: gorillas, giraffes, elephants, hippopotamuses. These animals eat only plants, and yet they're strong and muscular and vibrant, and they're only eating plants. They're not doing protein smoothies and stuff like that. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's definitely, as we mentioned, you can eat enough protein through plants. So I don't know what this protein calculator is suggesting, but there are different recommendations for how much protein people need based on what they're trying to achieve. There has been a lot of talk about protein in the last year. It's been very, very trendy. I think that has to do more with muscle building than it is for general health. And if that's your cup of tea, if that's your health goal, that's great. It still can be done with just consuming plants, but it is harder. So you have to be more intentional. You have to think about making sure you're getting enough of the certain foods, because you can eat an all plant diet and have all processed foods in your diet, which would be low protein, low fiber, could be high in saturated fat and sodium. That's not a heart healthy diet. So yes, we
No.
want to be eating more plants, but we want to be eating more whole foods as well. So making sure those two words are associated together, I think can be really helpful in the aim to protect our heart through food.
Yeah, I no, absolutely yes to that. I think too, like when you eat a plant, body's got to break it down, and it's going to break it down to the basic amino acids. I mean, when you eat a piece of meat like a steak, you can really see substance to it, right? Whereas, if you're trying to get a fork in a piece of lettuce, there's not that ability to do that. But the way the body breaks it down, protein doesn't make protein. What you eat, your body then turns it into something that it can then use through the amino acids that it's now basically digested and processed to build what the body needs, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think more of those whole foods have more of the amino acids than processed foods. So often when foods are processed, fiber stripped away, protein stripped away, because they want that food to be cooked quicker. And in order to do that, those nutrients kind of slow down the process. So trying to purchase foods that are whole and cooking them from scratch can be a really good heart healthy goal in order to reach those nutrients that you're looking for.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And again, like I said, there's so many ways to, pardon the pun, skin the cat. That Yeah, like I said, I think it's finding your own way, and it's being smart about it, starting slowly, and really just build to a place where you're comfortable and you've got kind of those go-to meals. We do something we had for dinner last night. Drink calls it a crazy salad, and for me, it's a huge bed of lettuce. You basically put in chopped up potatoes, toss in some olive oil, put them in the oven, bake them. Throw other fruits and whatnot on it, nuts and shoes like some nuts and some almonds and that kind of stuff, cranberry, and make this delicious dinner.
Yeah.
And I love that. And again, it doesn't have to be overwhelming. Like it's literally
Mm.
just a handful of lettuce on a plate and sauteing up some veggies, and you got yourself a good start, right?
Absolutely. And I think too, a lot of people, when they think of salads, they think of just lettuce. But as you mentioned, your lettuce has more than one ingredient, which is helps with the addition of flavor and texture and makes it a hearty meal instead of just a little bit of a side dish. So I think that's really important. And then also just thinking about all those colors on your plate, how beautiful that is. And, we do eat with our eyes as well as our stomach. So I think that's a really important thing to consider. And where do we get that color from? Well, we get it from plants, right? And the color is bringing us lots of antioxidants and vitamins and minerals, and thinking about it in that perspective as well, I think is important.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Again, like I said, the more colorful your plate is, the better it is. And yeah, absolutely. Like it's one of those things that you can have a salad and it could still be unhealthy if you're putting a lot of like a garbage dressing on, like something that's got really not much nutritional value or a lot of sugar. So again, I think it's being mindful about what you're doing. I tend to be I'm the olive oil guy and a little bit of balsamic vinegar. And there you go. I'm just happy as all get out. And so it's healthy. It's not a lot of calories, right? And it's good calories.
Yeah, so I think it's more than just calories too. So when we're looking at nutrition through heart health, we're looking at making sure we're getting enough nutrients like soluble fiber, plant protein are really important, plant sterols, as well as unsaturated fats. And that salad that you mentioned has all of those components. So it has lots of great fiber that helps lower cholesterol and manage our blood sugar levels. It has plant protein in it that helps with our muscle development. It also has lots of micronutrients like calcium and potassium and magnesium, which helps with our blood pressures. I think, keeping it simple with trying to have more plants, more color is really helpful to get a healthier heart through food without making it too complicated. Thinking, oh, am I getting enough calcium and enough magnesium? And because you can get really in the weeds and when you're starting to calculate all those numbers. And sometimes when you do that, it's too overwhelming that you just stop, that you don't continue. So keeping it simple, making sure you're getting color at each meal, more plants than you did yesterday, I think can be really, really helpful.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. So I got to go back to the olive oil question because I know we touched on this the last time we did talk, which is a while ago.
Mhm.
Help me understand why olive oil and healthy oils are really not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, obviously in moderation, but just curious as a dietitian, how do you address that with clients you have?
Sure, yeah. So olive oil is the main nutrient in it is the unsaturated fat. And consuming fat is important, but we want to make sure it's a heart healthy fat, which is the unsaturated fat. So this is a great type of fat to consume that helps to digest a lot of our fat soluble vitamins as well as help with hormone production. So we do need fats and particularly want them from these unsaturated fats. What olive oil brings to the table. It also has a lot of antioxidants and polyphenols. It's been studied extensively in the Mediterranean diet. And there's an older study called the PREDIMED study that shows that eating about 4 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil a day can help to prevent a heart attack or even prevent a secondary heart attack if you've already had one. So 4 tablespoons of olive oil is quite a lot because it is a lot. So 4 tablespoons of olive oil is a lot of fat, but that is what's being heart protective. That's what's providing those healthy therapeutic benefits to your heart to help lower your cholesterol, the inflammation, and ultimately prevent that heart attack or stroke.
Yeah, I mean, it's when you look at the Mediterranean diet, or I like to call it the Mediterranean lifestyle, it's very prominent in the blue zones. Like Dan Buettner, love his work and love how he's traveled the world and he's identified all these areas where there's more people that are living to over 100 years old. What are
Mhm.
they eating? And it's not just the food, it's the social thing, the social part of eating. There's so many layers and levels to it. I mean, really do like we're huge fans of his and his posts. And, again, it's really great information. And then like I said, that eating together, that social piece, right, is another part of it. But what are your thoughts on blue zones?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the research is there, and as you
Mm.
mentioned, it's a wonderful way to eat. And I think in North America, that's what we're missing is it's not necessarily the foods. We have all those foods available to us, but we're not eating in the same light. So yes, it's sharing those meals with others. It's making meals last more than the 5 minutes. It's not eating them in front of your screens, right? It's actually having them at the table and tasting your food and looking at the food and kind of enjoying the food is really, really important. But not only that, but it's also the preparation of the food. So when we look at those blue zones, they're cooking whole foods, and it takes a while to cook these foods. They're also cooking them with others. So it's making that a hobby part of a lifestyle as well. And that makes it more enjoyable when you're doing it with others and more sustainable too. So I
Mm.
think it's not only the eating itself, but it's actually the preparation as well.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you think of some of these in Japan, these purple sweet potatoes, and there's many. Finding out there's many iterations of the sweet potatoes they eat over in Japan that they believe is one of the reasons why they're living so long is because it's such a prominent thing in their diets. Again, bright colors, right? Again, back to the antioxidants and all of the healthy things that come along when you have a lot of color in a particular, whether it's a beet or like I said, a purple sweet potato. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, curious what your thoughts on those, and are you seeing those in Canada like we are now seeing them here everywhere?
I definitely have, usually more at the more expensive grocery stores, for sure. But I think again, that's getting into the weeds of heart health and nutrition. I think what makes that potato so beneficial is that it's purple. Well, where else can we find purple foods that are available and maybe not as costly would be something that I would approach it with, right? So thinking about adding color to your plate, getting that rainbow and keeping it simple. It doesn't have to be complicated or expensive. So that approachable form of eating is important to keep it sustainable because we want more people to be consuming more colors, and that can be done in so many different ways. So yes, if you want to be consuming that purple sweet potato from Japan, absolutely, but not everybody can. And so eating those dried raisins can also provide.
Yeah, I mean, you talk or you touch on something that's really relevant today is the cost of groceries and the
Mhm.
cost of healthy. Like, my mom constantly complains how much it costs for her to get her fruits and veggies now. And it's sad. It's sad that it's people are unfortunately not necessarily out of choice, but because they have no choice because they can't afford to get the healthier versions. And so they're reaching for those quicker foods that are loaded with sodium and canola oil, like the bane of my existence, canola oil, like that shouldn't be sold in food, in my opinion. It's not, I don't think it's one of the worst oils you can have. And it's Roundup is glyphosate is used in the growing of that. And so there's so much to it. But yeah, I mean, I think we're at a bit of a crisis state where groceries are getting to the point where it's hard for the average family to be able to pack in all these healthy foods because they're so expensive, and that makes me really sad.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, it's a big part of nutrition counseling is how are you going to get these foods that provide the therapeutic benefit, right? We say food is medicine. Well, medicine can be affordable based on insurance, right? But how is food affordable? And so meeting the person at where they are at. And then also looking at their practices about purchasing, storing foods, especially produce. A lot of the time, produce is kind of going in that crisper in your fridge and then wilting away. And so food waste is a really, uh, it's an area where I would love to explore more with my clients to help them save money. So, what food is going to waste? Why is it going to waste? How can we avoid that? I think looking into that more can be helpful with that ultimate question of how do we afford these foods?
Yeah, no, definitely. It's a good question. I think it's be interesting to see where that goes and how we can improve on things. Again, like I said, it's just an interesting time in the world right now, and it's just making it hard for people, especially here. Like I said, I really notice it a lot here. It's unfortunately when people are having to eat more inexpensive food because that's all they can afford. It comes with a lot of baggage, and again, I think it's heart health is important, and it's multifaceted. It's what you put in your body, exercise and all of those things, which yeah, like I said, if you're not getting the right uh, nourishment, do you have the energy to go and work out? And all that kind of stuff after a day of work. And so there's you could just wrap this up in so many different ways, but it's a reality. It's just unfortunately there's definitely a food issue that we have to come face to face with at some point, and hopefully we can figure it out because Canada only has a growing season that's so long, right?
Yeah,
And when you
absolutely. Yeah.
get it, yeah,
Yeah, and relying on those frozen fruits and vegetables too, I think is something that individuals may not know that it is as healthy as fresh, right? Often they are flash frozen after picking. And so all those nutrients are kept. And instead of having the fresh produce, which could travel many, many, many miles for many, many days and then sits on the shelf in the grocery store and then sits on your shelf in the fridge, and those nutrients are being lost. So often frozen foods, which can be more affordable, especially when you find them on sale, can be a really good option that people aren't necessarily aware of. So looking at the whole picture is really important. And then understanding those misconceptions that people may be reading online and trying to dispel those myths are extremely important as well. But I also like what you talked about is it's not just nutrition, it's exercise and sleep and stress. Those are extremely important pieces of the puzzle and often overlooked because sometimes we can't do anything about those ones, right? Like stress is always going to happen. So people don't look at it as something that they can change, but it definitely can be managed. And I really think it is important to look at those parts of your life because stress will be there no matter what. And it's about managing it and finding the tools to do that. So I think that's an extremely important piece that is often.
absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, as a coach now, someone who coaches people that have had heart attacks, and people reach out to me. I'm working with a client right now who, wanted some help with the Ornish plan that he was on. Dean Ornish, was one of the innovators in terms of plant based living and eating more plants and all of that. And it's again, it's learning the little nuances and again, making it work for you, right? It's important. You may have this book you read that says eat all this, but if it's not accessible, I mean, it's not going to be helpful. So it's
No.
got to be a bringing everything together, where it makes sense. And but yeah, I mean, definitely, I've noticed that nutrition has really become a big part of the conversation around heart health and longevity.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's something that people can control, right? You can't control your genetics, but you can control what you eat. But similarly, you can control how you manage your stress and how much exercise you have, right? And how much sleep you can get. So, all pieces of the puzzle, which are important to look at as a whole.
Yeah, for sure. Teaching people how to meditate has been, something I love to do. It's something that I used to struggle with. I didn't know how because no one ever really told me what meditation was. And I'd go to retreats to try and explore it. And I'd get frustrated and literally because I didn't know how to do it.
Mm.
And it's really rocket science. It's not. I mean, it's just sitting still. And if a thought comes, acknowledge it and let it go and get back to the breath. When I learned that, when I was gifted that, it was like this aha moment. It's like, wow, like I was making it about me, getting
Mhm.
angry at myself, looking at everybody. They look like the Buddha. They're sitting there super chill and I just can't shut my mind off. But now I offer myself grace and I allow myself to just let that thought go on and keep going. You can keep going and then get back to the breath. There's some really simple doable things that can help because stress is a silent killer. I talk about that all the time. It's real. You've got
Mhm.
to do. things that, can help mitigate that stress.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not going to go away. Once one stressor goes away, another stressor pops up. So we have to learn to manage it. And starting small, I think, is important too. Sometimes I just often recommend like little breathing exercises that are kind of the start of a meditation, but doing that throughout your day in these like micro movements. So when your coffee is brewing in the morning or when you're sitting at a red light, just try to start incorporating these, slowing down and incorporating those breaths that help you to start that meditation journey can be so important to learn that skill in a new way, right? Our life has always been about rushing and being busy and the more productive you are, the better person you are, but trying to incorporate this slower way of living can be just as rewarding in a different way, and shifting that mindset is important.
Yeah, mindset is everything. And I think on that note, that's a great segue to sort of wrap this up. I have a question for you. I was going to give it to you earlier to say, so knowing what you know now, given what you do, you've got young boys. If you could go back to your younger self and offer your younger self some advice, what would that be?
Well, that's a tough question. But I think
No
being
pressure.
kind, yeah, being kind to yourself, I think, is the most important thing you can do. So that self-compassion piece, speaking to yourself like you would a friend, I think can go a long way in so many different directions, whether it's eating well, exercising, stress management. But the way we talk to ourselves can really dictate the stress level and how we move about the world, and learning to talk to yourself in a kind way would be something I wish I started a lot earlier.
Me too. I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you. This has been a great conversation. I knew it would be. I truly, truly appreciate your time. I love that you're working with cardiac rehab and Dr.
Mhm.
He will always have a really special place in my heart. And, I'm just glad that we connected. I mean, it's funny how I think I saw you on social media years ago and started following you. And then we talked a little bit and, not knowing that you and Dr. O worked together when I
Yes.
first found it. So that's kind of one of I call that the mystery and the magic of life, right? You meet somebody and next thing you know, there's just, we're all connected at the end of the
We
day. We're
are.
all,
Isn't it wonderful? Yes, absolutely.
it
Yes.
really
Thank
is.
you, Brian, so much for reaching out and having this conversation with me. I really, really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. Thank you for taking time and I guess your time is valuable. And thank you to anybody who's going to tune in and listen to this podcast episode. Make sure you follow her. I will put your contact information and everything in the podcast notes when it goes up. And like I said,
Wonderful.
really appreciate you and the work you do. And remember, if you know somebody you think this content could resonate with, having a dietitian, follow her because she's got a lot of amazing stuff, amazing recipes. You want to definitely follow that. And like I said, please share it because that's how we grow it. And I will be back with another episode shortly. So as always, thanks for tuning in. I appreciate you all. This thing is getting bigger and bigger, and I'm just super excited on where it's going in the direction. And it's meeting people like Veronica that really help drive and propel me and have me wanting to continue with the work. So thank you to everybody that's tuned in. Until next time, bye for now.